All right, Pete. Do we have time to do a little sports?
Yeah, let's do a little sports. We got a little time. We're going to do a little quicker today, but going into the weekend, we've exhausted a little bit of what the craziness is in the NFL. But here's that mix where it's the NFL and the NCAA. You got the Senior Bowl, right? And it's a great opportunity for these seniors to get out there in front of them, in front of everything. Matter of fact, combines are not that far away, right? Free agency is going to kick off pretty soon. We talked a little bit about that. But I thought it would be fun just to say there's a couple of players who are really standing out right now. And they're looking at these guys going, wow, I didn't know this guy was quite this good. And I'll give you a great example. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. He will be the fourth in a row in 4 years to get in there. And, John, he's probably moved himself up in the draft significantly. I don't know how high it's going to go because it's all about need, right? But he's an inside offensive lineman, basically a guard or a center. And all he's done is beat the hell out of all these guys from Georgia, Bama, the biggest and baddest of all the schools, Penn State. You know, you go out through all these. And this kid is beating them like a drum. He's 6'5", 320 pounds. Got a pretty good size on him already, right? And I think he has been not only beating these guys, he's been destroying them. He's pancaking guys as they're coming in on these rushes and stuff. Mike Green on the other side of the ball doing the same thing, this kid from Marshall. He's 6'3", 250-pound edge rusher. And I'll tell you, John, Marshall plays some pretty good football. This kid is not just pretty good, he's damn good, and he's going to be moving up as well, I think. The more that they find out about him, it's pretty cool to see. There's a couple D linemen. You pointed out one earlier in the year, so I'll give you all the props in the world. Deion Walker. He's only 6'7", 340 pounds out of Kentucky, John. The kid probably runs a sub-4, 840 or something like that. He's a monster. Cam Jackson, a kid who's truly a monster at 6'6", 350 pounds from Florida. I mean, there are some guys that are showing a lot more than what they did show during the year because people finally get that opportunity to get in front of them and watch what they're doing, and that's kind of what the Senior Bowl is. Let's see what this quarterback from Minnesota, for instance, looks like. He's moving up too, John. This kid Max Brosmer, had a great season with the Gophers. He's phenomenal, and I think that they're taking note of what he really looks like with a really fast release. He's got good size. He's about 6'3", 220. Throws the ball like it's a rocket, and had a great year for the Golden Gophers. He came from New Hampshire, John. Nobody ever heard of this guy. He gets 1 year with the Gophers, and I think he will be somewhere higher in that draft too. But the question I got for you is, a guy like the kid from North Dakota State, are you comfortable enough because of the competition that he played against and now seeing against what he's going against with the top of the top? Is he draft worthy in the upper rounds because of the fact that he's been destroying these guys? Is that enough?
Yeah, it is for me, and I know it is for you. So that's a loaded question, folks. Because Pete refers to some of these players as airport players, where they look really good walking through an airport because they've got a 30-inch waist and a 58-inch chest, and they're just strutting as they walk and all that kind of stuff. Versus what do they really do on the football field? Because that's what's important. You don't run a 40, especially as a defensive or offensive lineman. It's how fast you come off the ball. Like that guy Carter, Pete, from Georgia that plays D tackle for the Eagles.
Yep.
When that kid comes off the line, he hurts people. And he's fighting with his hands as he's coming across. And we both saw him, kind of his hand went into the face of the offensive guard and the center a couple of times. But, I mean, he's throwing it all at you as he's coming. I think the reason that these are more important than the combine scores, Pete, are that, A, it's football. It's not a track meet. It's not a high jump contest. It's football. And in many cases, even like with your quarterback from the University of Minnesota or this guard, you're only as good as the people around you. So you could be the greatest guard in football and people will notice you, but they won't notice you the same as if you had a stud offensive tackle and an offensive center next to you that all of a sudden take a little pressure off and let you really do your thing rather than you trying to do two things at once. Because I've seen that happen where, you know, a guard in particular will try to cover for his tackle or cover for the center because they're not good enough. But the fact that this kid's knocking them down like that, Pete, very, very impressive. That kid from Marshall is a beast and a speed merchant too. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the combine, but this game where they've got top level competition against them is a big deal.
Yep, I totally agree with you, John. The second thing I thought we could hit on just real quick, it's fun because Pete Carroll, who's a friend of mine, I played for Pete back in the day with the Minnesota Vikings. He was the secondary coach. And I worked with the linebackers, obviously. So we did cross paths a lot because I did a little bit of safety as well. But I can tell you this, John, Pete Carroll going to the Raiders, here's what makes it so interesting for me. They have a lot of talent on the Raiders that has not been exploited. And I think that's like the defense, I think is far better than they've shown in the last couple of years. And I think the problem is coaching. Pete Carroll knows a lot about defense. He did a great job with the Vikings, did a great job at USC, did an unbelievable job at Seattle, went to a Super Bowl, right? I mean, Pete knows what he's doing. He's an older guy, but you know what? He puts around a lot of young guys around him. I think the Raiders could be one of those teams like the Washington Commanders that could turn it. But here's the key. Who's going to be his quarterback? He's been having to search around. They look at who's there at the roster now. I don't think he's on the roster right now. But Russell Wilson could be interesting, John. And it's not coming from me as a huge Russell Wilson fan. But I will say this. He was the quarterback for Pete at Seattle. They had some damn good teams there. Russell Wilson probably played some of his best football there. And I think that if he gets any kind of a whisperer, a quarterback whisperer there to be able to coach Russell Wilson back to being the Russell Wilson he was at Seattle, I think the Raiders become a very dangerous team in a hurry. They got the draft and free agency, but if they get Russell back there too, John, I think that puts them in the catbird seat where they can actually be very competitive as opposed to pathetic winning like 4 games or 5 games. I mean, they've got to do a lot better than that, and I think that's what Pete Carroll's going to do. He's got a great tight end. I think he might have broke a record this year. This kid Bowers from Napa, California, played at Georgia, but he had 112 catches as a tight end this year. So you get him the right quarterback who then spreads it around maybe more better to the receivers. That's an offense that could be a lot better than they showed this past year.
Yep. Oh, I'm just going to be a yes man on that and say, you're right. You're right. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us.